Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our first Pieridae narratios. And if you haven't heard why we're calling them that, of course, Pieridae is the Latin word for butterfly, a species of butterflies. And so we thought it fitting that if we were going to have conversations with individuals such as our CEO, Alfred Sorensen, and we have another one with our COO, Darcy Redding, we'd call it the Latin word for conversation, which is narratio. So hopefully you appreciate that and like it. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I think has really come on stream in the business sector in the last few years, probably late 2017, when reports morphed from sustainability reports to ESG reports, or environmental, social, and governance. And so a lot of companies have jumped on that bandwagon in the last few years, and it's really become a necessity. And so I'm going to talk with Alfred today about Pieridae's inaugural, first ever ESG report. Alfred, we got it out the door today, and it must feel pretty good in having that report available for stakeholders, investors, and others to read.
I think it was an accumulation of a group of people's efforts to put together, first of all, the basis under which we would draft the report, and a lot of hard work over the last year or so to make sure that we had a report that not only told our story well, but gave us a roadmap to where we want to go over the next 2 to 5 years, and how all our major projects fit into our story of how we use our assets to minimize their impact on the environment and bring value to our shareholders at the same time.
And one thing you said in the letter that you wrote for the report is that the whole concept of ESG and an ESG strategy, if you don't have it as a company currently, you're not going to be successful. And you also need an ESG strategy for your projects to be financeable. Can you just expand on that a little bit for me, please?
Well, I think that as the world and financial institutions in particular began to see their role of protecting the environment as a bigger part of how humanity wants to go forward, that you need to change with the times. And certainly what would have been easy financeable maybe 20 years ago, today, without taking into consideration the impact that your project or your company will have on the environment, just won't allow it to be financeable. So it's a big part of, even if you look at high-tech new technologies or new high-tech, that a lot of those businesses take an enormous amount of power, and now they're looking for ways to reduce their impact on the environment, because most power that they're using is coming from coal and therefore having a big impact on the environment. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in, and particularly our industry, because we are the fossil fuel industry, that we have to find ways to show investors that we're minimizing our impact on the environment in order to obtain their funding.
And one thing that we did say in our report, as far as our commitments as a company are concerned, is that we remain committed to net zero emissions by 2050. And, you've spoken about this in recent weeks with the announcement of our Caroline Carbon Capture Power Complex. Do you think we'll see similar initiatives or other announcements in the future that are along that vein, so we can further move down that path of net zero emissions by 2050?
Well, I think we have to look at a variety of different solutions. That the carbon sequestration project not solve all of our issues. So looking for alternative opportunities to minimize our impact on the environment, whether it comes from replacing old equipment with more efficient equipment in the plants. We've already begun looking at different places to do that earn us. Not only do they reduce our cost structure, but also earn us credits that reduce our cost of our greenhouse gas emissions. So that I think there's going to be a variety of things. We're also looking right now at getting our gas to be certified as environmentally friendly natural gas, such that we'll be able to extract a premium. So I think when we look at the different solutions to getting to a net zero, hopefully most of them come with economic benefit as well, or at least a reduction of cost structure, such that we are avoiding greenhouse gas taxes by reducing our carbon imprint, or by being able to charge a premium for our products because we produce them socially and economically responsibly.
Back to your letter for a minute, and another element that struck me is, you talked about ESG, and it's a concept Pieridae is embracing, but you also made the point that this isn't anything new from a philosophy standpoint. The acronym or the phrase environmental social governance or ESG may be new, but this is a philosophy that the company has had for a number of years, and I would suggest even you personally have had for much longer than that. Can you just give me a sense of why ESG has been ingrained in the company and also in your personal philosophy?
Well, I think that first of all, starting from a personal side, you want to be able to ensure that whatever you're doing, whether it's how you live your own personal life or our corporate life, that we're protecting our environment for the future. So I think that that's always been an important part of the last two companies that I've been a part of. That we've always wanted to be minimizing our impact on no matter what we're trying to do. And I think from maybe the S in the ESG formula that we spend most time on is certainly developing relationships with Canada's First Nations. And I think that that's really been an important part of learning for myself personally. Certainly when we had our project in Kitimat, it was our first or my first experience in dealing with the issues that our First Nations partners and peoples of Canada face in this country, and really taking lessons from that is what developed our relationship with the Mi'kmaq and Nova Scotia. So, we see very much that in the news today, that the greater awareness of the difficulties that the First Nations people have had over the last 150 odd years, and I think that greater awareness personally came certainly from our Kitimat experience, and hopefully what we've been trying to do within the company is increase everyone's awareness. And certainly I think the work that Colin and Thalia have done over the last 6 months has been really spectacular, and probably somewhat difficult for them as individuals, as they've had to talk about very difficult subjects that often bring back painful memories for everybody. So I think that as a company, we want to be able to say that we're doing our part to not only give opportunities to First Nations people that are more difficult for them to obtain under normal circumstances. And I think this past summer was a good example of us. A year ago, we decided to have no students on board because as COVID was making life difficult for everybody. It was hard to figure out what we were going to do. But now that we had a year of experience with that, and a lot of us back to work already, that we took on, we looked to get 4 students. I think we got 2 in the end, and hopefully we're giving them an interesting experience that will allow them to grow as individuals. And I think that's that is one way that we can help First Nations people heal one person at a time, is by giving opportunities and being able to let them have a hand up so that they can help themselves and into the future.
And you mentioned the work that Colin and Thalia have done, and 2 of the students you just mentioned, Kelly and Nathan, were strong participants in a lunch and learn we had recently talking about Indigenous peoples and the history, and it was quite fascinating. And when I think about learnings for our company, we talk a lot about ESG externally, but ESG is very important internally. So how do you build that awareness within a company, within Pieridae, so people understand what we are trying to achieve with an ESG strategy and how they can become a part of it?
Well, I think the one thing that and certainly I've been supportive, but not necessarily leading these initiatives that have really been well taken up by the overall company population is these lunch and learns, whether they've been with regards to First Nations or cybersecurity was another good one, and that we're starting to see very good participation in these events. Somewhere between 50 and 100 people. Our town halls themselves have been very well attended, and I think a lot of that, due to yourself, James, is very always up ahead of the curve and trying to find different ways for people to interact with the management of the company. I think that's been really one way that we can be in the forefront of selling our ESG strategy to internal folks. And I think when we selectively pick organizations to support, so last winter we made a major donation to the West Bragg Creek Trail Association, and this was something that it's Moose Mountain is in our backyard. It potentially could be a larger resource piece of keeping Jumping Pound full, and we want to make sure people see us as a responsible company if we decide to drill again in that area. Or last year, when during COVID, we continued to do the H4H event that was a shell project in the past, but again, we bought our steer and auction and gave it. I think we donated it to somebody or some organization, but hopefully somehow people had a good meal out of that. But that again, I think that we were in the community, and I think that's and a lot of that is coming from the different parts of the company, or people wanting to support within their own community, and that the company is willing to be supportive of those types of activities. And I think that's how we take the ESG message from the boardroom down to the staff member, is that as long as we're supportive of different initiatives that people bring to the table, whether it's I want to talk about something at noon, can I have an audience, and we're willing to make that happen, whether it's initiatives that Colin and Bailey have been working on, that a lot of that's coming from their effort and well supported by management. So I think that's one way of us selling and making it a two-way street, that when we talk about how we impact the environment, that we support organizations that help take care of the environment as well. So I think getting ideas from our entire staff complement is how we make sure that we're not going to be able to solve everybody's problems, but that at least we are open and receptive to different types of opportunities that people may bring forward over the next, say, 6 months or years. So we do obviously have economic constraints right now, but I think we are very much trying to make sure that we walk our talk, and that we be good members of the communities that we live in, and that and different employees come up with ideas of how we can minimize our impact on the environment, that we are listening to what they have to say, so that we can certainly implement those suggestions that have the most value to the company and to the environment.
And one way we are walking that talk is a fairly recent development, where a new board committee was formed at Pieridae, the Governance and ESG Committee, chaired by Karen Singh, a strong leader. And I would suggest she'll play a very important role, along with the other two committee members, in advancing the ESG mandate.
Well, certainly, we were very lucky to have Karen join our board. She's not only highly motivated to make things happen, that I think she's very excited to be a part of our company, and brings a lot of new perspectives on some of these types of ideas that are out there. And earlier this year, when we began to think about how we wanted to make ESG a big part of our message to investors, particularly, was how we were going to change governance, and that was really the primary focus, was to make it obvious that this was a big piece of our business. And when we looked at other companies and how they went about elevating the importance of the subject, that we wanted to do something that was appropriate for the size of the company. Obviously, we don't have the same kind of issues of a Suncor or somebody like that, and how they make the effort of it is to have a specific board position. Our company is quite a bit smaller, obviously, and so we still wanted to be able to make known to investors that this was an important part of our decision-making process, and that and that's the principal reason why we changed the name of the committee. And we also made it being chaired by an individual who has significant experience in this, particularly when you take the two ideas of finance and ESG together. Karen brings to the table a lot of experience in that regard, and it really allows us, I think, will allow us to continue to enhance our ability to raise funds by the fact that we are very cognizant of this issue as a whole.
And when we look forward, we seem to have the building blocks in place. We have the right leaders. We seem to have the right strategy and the right focus and the right initiatives in place to advance ESG internally. But when you look more broadly, both internally and externally, what do you see as our ESG path forward? And what do we need to do as a company to be successful in that space?
I think on the environmental side, we have to show improvement year over year. And that's really kind of the most measurable part of the ESG strategy is very much on the environmental side. And our report very much shows the key environmental statistics that we're going to show over the next few years, how we improve over time. I think a big issue that we will continue to deal with will be diversity. We have spent a lot of time over the last year ensuring that we are looking at the diverseness of our board, of our management team, how we can improve both by not making token appointments, but looking for people specifically who can bring real value. And I think we see that in our LNG project when we hired Andy, that we brought some interesting diversity with himself. And it comes from one of the best universities in India. That is a good example as well, and the fact that when we look at our survey of diversity, that again we got a very good response from individuals, and people care about these things. And I think we learned a lot about our company. We're not nearly as monolithic as what one might think that it would be. So I think we learned a lot about and some of the issues that people care about. So I think diversity is something that we're not ever going to be the poster child for it, but I think it's going to be an important thing in how we look at ourselves, that we make sure that our company looks like Canada. And as Canada changes, so should we change. So, and we get different perspectives from a lot of different people now. So, and I think that helps with the overall growth of the company, as we have people bring different perspectives to how to solve different types of problems. So I think the one thing that, when we look at the last year, it's obviously sometimes people think, you've got other issues you should be focusing on. Why are we kind of talking about sort of what some people might think are fringe ideas? But they go a long way to helping us solve some of the bigger problems that were out there by just having different viewpoints on how we can tackle and solve some very difficult issues right now.
Alfred, thank you for this very good conversation.
Thanks for asking me. Have a good day, James.
You too. Bye-bye.